Welcome to the Exposed Strength Podcast with Jared Bidne. In this episode, I'm going to go over the logo, the Exposed Mechanics logo, how I actually came up with the name Exposed Mechanics for the business. And I'm also going to go over some BS speed training, what true speed training is, not this fad crap that we see around or that we hear about. I'm going to go over hard factual information. I'm going to go over some results that I've got here. I'm going to go over some books and things that talk about speed training. And I'm so tired of people trying to sell people based on the idea of what they think it is. When if people would test, they would know. But I see a lot of people out there not testing, and they're just going out there, they're running through these drills and they're doing all this BS that's not necessary. And so it looks good, but just because something looks good don't mean it is good. So we'll get into that, but here we go with the logo. When I was trying to think of the name or what name I was going to call the gym, I was just basically, I wanted to have something, a logo with meaning, something behind the logo, something that's almost like a virtual force, is like here, we talk about something that's there that's not recognized until you bring out what it is. So if you look at like FedEx, I use that as an example, and the FedEx logo between the E and the X, there's an arrow there and it signifies moving forward, but you don't really notice it until someone points that out. So I wanted to have, there's all kind of other logos out there that have meaning behind them, but I wanted to have a meaning behind my logo when I created it. And so I think I was looking, I said, okay, explosive strength. Well, at that time, I think explosive strength had a pretty pricey price tag on it. And so I couldn't use that because I was typing in, I'd find a name, I'd type it in on GoDaddy or Bluehost or something like that to see if I could actually get that web address name. And so, nope, I got frustrated. So let's look up biomechanics. You know, that has to do with something that we learned in school. So I looked up biomechanics and it said C mechanics. I said, okay. Well, once I looked up the definition of mechanics, it read, it's a branch of mathematics dealing with bodies, emotions, and tendencies to motion. And that branch of mathematics is physics. I was like, oh, shoot, that's it. You know, and the routine operation of a thing, basic methods, techniques, and detail. I said, damn, that's what it's about. And so I didn't realize when I looked up the definition of mechanics, I was going to get a branch of mathematics dealing with bodies in motion and tendencies to motion, a routine operation of a thing. I was like, damn, that's it. And explosive needed to describe the type of mechanics that we're trying to create. So, because all athletes, you have to be explosive. You got to go from point A to point B quick. And so I was like, explosive is going to describe the mechanics that we're trying to create. Then if you look up what explosiveness is, you can look this up out of a physics book. P is equal to force times distance per unit of time. Well, power can also be displayed in force times velocity. Power can also be work over time. But if the distance is consistent, you can actually substitute that work for strength over time. So power is strength over time. The amount of strength you can display in a certain period of time, the greater your explosiveness will be. I said, dang, that's it. So, and then the only way to get explosive mechanics, to be able to display strength in a shorter period of time, is to have more strength. You know, explosive strength is 75% of absolute strength. So how do you become more explosive? You have to get stronger. You have to increase your absolute strength so that your explosive strength can go up with it. Although you have to lift heavy weights, you're going to have maximum neural excitement for the more neurons to pull on the fibers, creates that greater strength. As you create greater strength, you'll have explosive strength deficits and different deficits along the way in order to get where you want to go. So you have to do exercises that work on rate of force development to help increase your explosive strength. But what you'll see is people wanting to go out and do like speed drills. They're wanting to go do drills without the strength. Like there's a place close to me around here that they'll do a lot of cone drills, do a lot of this stuff, but they won't work on, like this kid came and said, Jared, someone came to our school and it was one of my competitors, and they said, all we did was work on power cleans the whole time. And we just used a bar and we just did that basically the entire time. And the guy basically told him, he said, we don't even squat there. I said, well, damn, if you don't squat, you're not increasing your strength. A power clean is not going to increase your strength. If you heard me on the last episode, I went into a rant. Power cleans are a rate of force development exercise. Lightweight can improve strength because not enough myofibrils are going to be stimulated. The lightweight explosive movements of a power clean are for enhancing rate of force development. Well, if you don't have a high level of absolute strength, you're going to, once you get to that maximum, whatever it is in your body as far as that rate of force development, the only way to create greater force is going to be to get stronger once you maximize your rate of force development, okay? So a kid could probably go out and do cone drills, may get a little bit better, but in a short period of time, they're not going to get any faster. They're not going to be able to cut any sharper. They're not going to be able to change direction because their limiting factor, again, is going to be the absolute strength. Because by the time you take your body X and you move it at a rate of force, at a certain rate of speed, you're going to have to overcome that inertia in order to change direction to get back where you want to go. And if your body cannot absorb those forces, you're not going to go and change direction as quick as you want to, although your technique may be good, but sometimes your technique may be limited by your strength. And so a lot of people just want to go to these little pity-pat, play around drills without increasing the main thing that's going to make them faster at the drill. And so I'll get into that as far as we get into some of this other stuff. But that's how I came up with the name Explosive Mechanics. And so let's get into like sand training, for instance. The only athletes that need to freaking be doing sand training are beach volleyball players, because that is their sport, playing in the sand. They're not concerned with sprint speed, and just because they're running drills or you'll see these people, you got some famous athletes out there on Instagram that are doing cone drills, that are doing ladders, that are doing stuff in the sand. Well, when you train in the sand, the ground gives way. And just because it's hard to move in does not mean it's going to transfer and make you faster. Explosive power and speed and explosiveness is stored in the ligaments and tendons of the body, not the muscle belly itself. So that's where if you see an athlete with a longer Achilles tendon, that's going to produce a lot more explosive power than a person with a longer calf, shorter Achilles. And so when you want to become more explosive, you have to have some type of deformation go on in the body. And by training in the sand gives way, causing greater strain on the muscle tissue versus the tendons. So in order for that foot or whatever part of or component of the body that needs to have some type of deformation in the main thing that creates the explosive power, which is the ligaments and tendons. And like I said, just because it's hard does not mean it's good. So if you feel it, it's a conditioning tool. But when you're training in the sand, the foot externally rotates. So if you're trying to change direction and the foot rotates, the ground gives way as you try to put force against it, causing more strain on the hip and groin area. A lot more hamstrings have been pulled in the sand. It may be hard to move in, but it will have a low impulse on the joints and has low impact on the joints. And that's why someone else may say when they want to do it, has low impact on the joints, but it causes greater strain on the muscular system. It's not the muscular system that needs to be more explosive, it's the ligaments and tendons. You got Hooke's law. It's like throwing a basketball against the ground. If I threw a basketball against hard concrete, it's going to bounce up higher. If I threw the basketball against the sand's going to dissipate, move out of the way, and the ball may not even bounce up, may just go boom, boom, done. It's going to have more of a deadening effect to it. So if you're trying to teach your body to become more explosive and faster, you don't need to train it in something that's going to give away and take away from the main thing that's going to create the explosive power, which are the ligaments and the tendons. So sand training's BS. So just because that you see it's popular and that you see a lot of athletes out there doing it, it don't mean it's good. Sometimes these athletes everything's like a copycat sport. What's the University of Alabama doing? Oh, what's Georgia Tech doing? What's Georgia doing? What are these schools? And they're trying to go like these some of these high schools around here. Hey, I was at Alabama. Well, shit, you don't have Alabama athletes. You know, as kids become older in training and get this training age under effect, you treat them differently. You train them differently. You know, you don't treat your high school athletes that are on JV or ninth grades like someone at Alabama. They're a lot more athletic. They have a lot higher speed, a lot higher strength levels, and so depending on what you have is how you got to train what you have. You just don't go copy someone and do what they do and say that's going to be your program, because that's retarded. Ladders. You see this foot ladder and these things like that. Ladders, no force is produced at the hip. And if you watch these ladder drills and these quick, short foot movement drills, it's actually like running with constraints on. They're always in flexion. They're never extending the foot, they're never extending the knee, and they're never extending the hip. So if you're not extending those three components, you're not producing any power. It's like the road runner. It may look like you're doing something fast, but you're actually going nowhere. Dr. Yessis years ago wrote an article on the ladder drills. It can actually alter mechanics and cause them to have much more poor agility time. And people, well, coordination. Well, if you're looking at the ladders, most of them are 12 inches, 12 to 15 inch boxes. And there's like 12 boxes. I don't know how long ladders, because I don't have a ladder. I was smart enough to realize that this ain't working. So I've even had some athletes go off to high-end D1 colleges that did the ladders all the time. That's what they want to do. Boom, 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 boom. Makes you feel good. You're getting through that thing. You're getting better at doing it, but you're never really overloading anything. Your foot, how much force are you producing if you're only picking your foot up a few inches off the ground? The best way to produce more force when you're trying to improve your spin training is bounding, overloading the ground reaction forces, not creating little ground reaction force by moving in a short constraint period of time. So I've had athletes go to these high, they ran ladder, like I said, all the time. You test your 40. These are DBs now. Remind you, DBs are supposed to be fast at these D1 schools. You're talking big time schools. And their running speeds were 4.9, 5 flat. And I was like, damn, how do you explain this to people? So, and another thing that gets on my nerves is like these kids wanting to go get faster. So guess what? They want to go track season. They want to go participate in track. You know, like a lot of high school coaches recommend that the kids go do track. You know, and most of the time, within track season, they overrun the kids. And so they're not getting better. So I've got a kid right now that's going to track, and I've got his test results right here as far as when he comes to the gym. He was running a 6 flat. The next month he ran a 5.92. The next month he ran a 5.85, and he ran a 5.87. Well, he starts track. Well, after his first month of track, he came in and he ran a 6.25. So we went from a 5.8 to a 6.2. Holy cow. Second month of track, 6.11. Holy cow. So he may have gotten a little better after the first month. He had a real big initial hit, 0.4 of a second going off his 40-yard dash. The next month, he went from a 6.2 to a 6.1, so we gained a 10th back, but we're still down 3. And so that's what I'm trying to say. And usually in track, they're not working on recovery times. You know, if I've got a book here, it's called Science of Sports Training, How to Plan and Control Training for Peak Performance. Full recovery for a 200-meter run takes, for an example, 12 minutes. And 8 minutes is enough to restore work capacity to about 95%. So if they're going out there and track and they're running and they're not monitoring how long these athletes are resting, they're just conditioning. Well, endurance training inherits a muscle's capability to produce a maximum force. So you're out there, which all has a negative impact on speed and performance. So just because you're running more, like I said, more is not always better. Just because you're running more does not mean you're getting more out of it. And just because you're out there sprinting, and if these athletes are not running at optimal speed, maximum speed, I can't even find it in this book, but if they're not running at maximum speed, a speed barrier, and if they run the same speed constantly over and over and over, a speed barrier will get formed. And so once a speed barrier gets formed, you may not get out of that just with strength training only. So you may have to do some overload methods in order to break that speed barrier once the speed barrier gets built in. So it's hard to say because everybody thinks that, oh God, well, that's what you were told as a kid, so that's what they do. Running speed is all about mass-specific force, which is force applied in relation to your body weight. So as force applied to the ground, stride length and stride frequency are a byproduct of running fast. You know, like I was saying like earlier, the ladder where they're trying to move their feet, top running speeds are not achieved. Our top running speeds are achieved with greater ground forces, not more rapid leg movements. So if you got, like I said, like a road runner, if you got more rapid leg movements, more ground contact times, you're going to be slower. The guy who ran a 4.2240 ran a 40-yard dash in 19 steps. So why take a lot of short, quick type of steps in a short period of time when, like Bolt, the fastest guy in the world, I think his ground contact time per foot was 1/10 of a second. So you're taking athletes that are much slower than him, their ground contact time per their footstep is going to take, if it was Bolt speed, 1/10 of a second. So you have them take more steps in a short period of time, their time's going to be slower. And just like I had this guy in here running today, he was too mechanical because you could tell he's done speed training. We were doing flying 10s. Once he started working and being more mechanical with it, running or sprinting speed is very demanding on the nervous system. Requires high brain activity. So once he started thinking about what he was doing, he went from running a 1.25 flying 10 to running a 1.35, 1.37, 1/10 of a second in 10 yards because he started thinking about what he was doing. So getting stronger will help you get faster just because you'll be able to apply more force to the ground. And you got to think about this. Strength is the ability to tolerate force. If change in direction, like I said earlier, if I don't have the strength to tolerate that force that I've gained in order to change that direction, I'm not going to change that direction very, very fast. Just like you take a big, heavy lineman. He's probably only squatting 400 or 500 pounds. Well, if he weighs 300 pounds, he's not squatting his mass. He's not squatting enough, so he's not produced his mass-specific force is not there. Like you've heard me talk about on plenty of other podcasts, top-end elite Olympic sprinters, one thing they have in common is they squat about 2.5 times their body weight. You've also heard me talk about several podcasts that athletes who squat 2.1 times their body weight are significantly faster than those who squat 1.9 times their body weight. So what do you think the biggest, most singular component is? Get that squat high relative to your body weight. So that's why when you got these kids going to school, anything over 6 reps will hinder strength development. You got these kids going to school, squatting 6, 8, 10, 12 reps. That's bodybuilding. You take some of these manuals that I've gotten that these kids have received from these schools I go to, 4 sets of 10. Well, shit, you look up the old Arnold Encyclopedia, it recommends 4 sets of 10. And I told someone, they're not trying to train you out of sending you a manual. They're sending you a manual so that it's better than you doing nothing. And so strength's ability to tolerate force. Acceleration is force times mass. So that's why, again, you have to increase your relative strength in order to become much faster. And think about this. Most time in sport, these athletes are not going to be going in, and I'll read this in a minute out of this book, but they're not really running more than 15 yards in a straight line. And so if you want to go strength versus technique, the more strength you have, the less perfect your technique has to be. In sport, you're always in weird angles and disadvantages. So strength will win because strength, the greater you are, the stronger you are, the greater your acceleration will be. And the greater your mass specific force will be, where you're applying more force in the ground per body weight. So again, but then when you're also working about this speed and this mass specific force and all this, you've got to, the key is you also have to increase their strength without increasing their muscular mass. That's where explosive mechanics comes in. You got to learn how to build this recipe. You know, if I get an athlete to 2 point, so if you take, I don't even know where this is. I may have put it on my Twitter years ago. You take two athletes, both of them same height, both of them same weight, and both of their relative strengths are the same. So they both squat 2.1, they're the same height, they're the same weight. But one's a faster 100 than the other. Well, the slower person needs to work on rate of force development exercises. You know, more bounding, more skipping, more jumping. So by increasing your strength, you can increase your acceleration. You can increase the amount of force you apply into the ground, which will equal greater stride lengths instead of trying to overstride. If you try to overstride, you're going to have a negative shin angle, which is going to make you slower, have more braking forces going to the ground. And you got to think about this. And a lot of these people want to come in, want to do different specific speed drills. Max velocity usually does not happen in sport. 10 yards this way, 10 yards, 5 yards, go this way. Even in base running, you may have to be running from first to second. All of a sudden, somebody throws the ball to second, then you got to get back to first, and that's only 30 yards. You know, they're off time. That's curvilinear running. It's not even a straight line running. And even if they're off the first base, head to second, 90 feet, they're off a good 5 yards, maybe more, maybe less. And you got to think, like, great athletes are not always great coaches. I heard someone the other day trying to, this dad was telling me about this catcher that was really good. And he was asking and the catcher said, I don't know, I just did it. And I heard, so you see some of these people that are great in their sport trying to give advice. The best thing I ever heard the other day was, I'm a big golfer, I love golf. I was listening to Brooks Koepka talk. And he was saying, people always ask, hey, can you look at this and see what I'm doing? Hey, he said, I'm not a coach, I don't know. He said, I just do it. And so he said, he admitted that he's not trying to be something that he's not. He just goes out, he said, I just go out there and I just do it. So sometimes you have great athletes trying to be a great coach. Several months ago, I had a guy call me. He was being trained by this guy who had a 40-inch vertical, but the guy naturally had a 40-inch vertical. He was trying to have this kid jump higher by doing leg press. Well, guess what happens when you do a leg press? Well, that's what the guy did. The guy already had a natural ability to jump 40 inches. Of course, anything he does is going to jump 40-inch vertical. Well, how do you take the person that jumps a 24-inch vertical and give him a 40-inch vertical? Leg press is not the key. In a biomechanics book, I think it's either in my biomechanics book, jumping is a manifestation of hip extension. Shit, so okay, what muscles extend hip? That's your glutes and your hamstrings. Hip muscles, and then hip muscles, well, how do you train your hip muscles? There's no such thing as hip muscles. There's muscles that cross the hip, which is your rectus femoris, which is your quad muscle, all right? Then you got your hamstrings. Then you have your glutes. So if you're doing leg press, you're doing a knee extension exercise because your hip stays flexed. So by leg pressing, that's why I don't have a leg press in explosive mechanics, because it's not going to increase hip extension power. So when you squat, your knees and your hips extend at the same time. When you box squat, you're also cutting out, when the athletes box squat, they don't get, soreness is not as greater. They can recover quicker, and therefore they can squat more times per week. And if you heard me on the last podcast, the difference between a hard box and a soft box is the soft box uses more leg drive, and the hard box uses more hip and hamstring strength. So trains your glutes and your hamstrings a lot better. So what I'm trying to get at is that although we are, depending on which box you're using, we're trying to create acceleration. So I need more leg drive off the start. So your mechanics in your first 10 to 15 yards are going to be a little bit different as to when you get out past that 20-yard time. And then once you get past the 20-yard time, then it's more hamstrings than it is legs. So what can we do to increase? How do we do both? Well, we squat to increase our leg drive with a box squat with a soft pad. Then we work on our deadlift. Deadlift, it strengthens the hamstring at the hip. Nordics, inverse curl, GHRs, GHDs, or whatever people want to call them, strengthen the hamstring at the knee. So if you strengthen the hamstring at the knee, you strengthen the hamstring at the hip, you squat, you're still, when you squat, even if it's not maximum, like we get more knee drive by using the soft pad versus the hamstring, we're working hamstrings by doing something else because we have to accelerate. And so you can pick and choose what you want to create in the best optimal way, but how do we know it works? Because we test it. And so, I also get on these things where these kids, just because you get older, does not mean you get faster. I've had a kid come in here, I didn't pull this folder. I did pull this one kid's folder. 1 year from January of 2019 to January of 2020, this kid was running this kid actually, when he started off at 805, 789, 759, 752, and a 733. So we went from a 8.0540 to a 7.33 40-yard dash. Quit coming did not come for a year later. He runs a 7.68. Holy cow. Then the next month he did the same thing. He ran a 7.61. So it's very hard. He went from a 7.68 to a 7.61 in 1 month, but was not consistent. And when I started off, when he came back, I started him off regular squatting. So once we get him more consistent, the younger kids, if you heard me last time, I'll talk about different things on there. Here's a kid that improves. And I try to show these things to everybody when they come here. This kid went from a 5'1", 5 flat, 4'9", 4'8", 4'7", 4'7", 4'6", 4'5", and his 40-yard dash. These are per month times, but this kid was coming every day. So he's at least, if he's coming every day, I know he's at least squatting 3 days a week. This kid over time went from a 6'1" to a 4'7'5". From a 19.2 inch vertical to a 38.1 inch vertical. And this kid ran a 5'1", did not test, his leg was hurt. So then the next month he ran a 4'9", then a 4'8'7", then a 4'8'1" the next month. This kid ran a 5'2", a 5'1", a 4'9", and a 4'9". This kid ran a 5'1", 5'0", 4'9". This kid went to a speed training place. Like if you've heard some of these podcasts before, this kid was going to a speed training place where they're working on, because that's what people think. Hey, look, I'm gonna sell you on this idea. We're gonna run these cones, we're gonna jump these hurdles, we're gonna do single leg work, we're gonna do all this stuff, but we're not gonna freaking squat. All right, the cone drills and all that stuff are designed to enhance your rate of force development. But if you lack maximum strength, or if you lack strength, your force production is gonna be very low. So this kid started off with a 205 box squat. He ran a 5'3", 540, 5'4", 640, 5'4", 940, and a 5'3", 6. I tested his 40-yard dash 4 times because I didn't believe he was that damn slow. Well, the next month he runs a 5'2". The next month he runs a 5'1". Next month he runs a 5 flat. Next month he ran a 4'8". The next month he ran a 4'7". Ended up getting a scholarship going to school. So he got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 months what he did not get in a complete year there. And I had another kid that went from he left here, wanted to go work on their speed. I hate this freaking speed stuff. People are selling these people on ideas they need to get faster, not necessarily get stronger, so they think they're getting stronger at school. Well, here's a kid. He started off, I didn't bring him over here. You've heard me talk about it on a couple of podcast episodes ago. The kids they were getting consistently faster here. One of them went from a 6 flat to a 5.40. The other one went from a 5'8" to a 5'3", or somewhere in that range. Numbers may not be specific or exact. And they did high school weight training. 8 months. Well, when they came back, whatever speed they left at was the speed that they got. So again, now you got the example of the kids getting older. They were 8 months older. They're teenagers, so they're rapidly changing body structures, and every hormonal changes and everything else are happening. They had 8 months of school training in, ran the exact same thing they did when they left 8 months ago. So how the hell are they going to working out and not getting any faster because no one's monitoring? You know what? They're probably doing regular squats, probably not even box squatting, and probably don't even know how to overload box squat in order to make them strong enough in a shorter period of time. Just like that kid, I had the kid. I say he's a kid, he's freaking 6'6", but he, January benched 250, yesterday benched 300 for 2. explosive mechanics increases strength at rapid rates, while maintaining a relatively light body weight so that we're increasing our relative strength so that we can move more explosive. All right, this kid went from a 6'3", 6'0", 6'2", 5'9", 5'6", 5'5", 5'3", and a 5'2". Damn, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. At 8 months, went from a 6'2" to a 5'2". 1 second. 1 second. And his dad said, he needs to get faster. He needs to get faster. I think they say that they need to get faster because they don't see us working on speed drills. You don't work on speed drills to get faster if everything else is working. Once your rate of force development, once we're not increasing our relative speed, then we can work on those drills. But until then, get what you can out of everything. Don't exhaust yourself. This kid, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 months. He went from a 6'0" to a 5'3". From a 20-inch vertical to a 30-inch vertical. Jumping is explosive power. That's how you measure explosive power. This kid, 5'1", 5 flat, 4'9", 4'8", 4'7", 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Heard me talk about this. This was a super slow turtle girl. She ran a 7'8", 7'7", 7'3", 7'2", 6'8". Those were all numbers were achieved with box squatting. I moved her to regular squat. She went from a 6'8" to a 7. Kept her on regular squat. She went from a 7 to a 7'1". I said, oh shit, let's go back to box squat. Then we got a 6'9", then a 6'8". So in a few months we kind of messed up. But sometimes if I know they're going to be here, I need to go take them to regular squats so I can build a good structural base so that I can overload the box squat more. Because sometimes the kids here are box squatting more than they are regular squatting. So I need to make sure our regular squat's building our base so that I can pound more box squat on top of them. That way we can get better. This kid's been here many months. So we went from a 6'4" to a 4'6". Not bad. 6'3", 6'3", 6'2", 6'1", 6'0", 5'9". So that's all I'm gonna read out of these books because I can, as you hear, I can keep going, I can keep going, keep going, keep going, whatever. So that's some of the results and stuff that we've got with speed training here. And if you look at my Instagram, you see that I'm squatting them. You see that I'm doing what I need to, and I can't really get it past the people that they don't need to do that, but they want to see them do that. You know, we do run tread sled. That's about all the speed, that's inertial exercise. Then if you look in this booklet right here from the National Strength Conditioning Association, I wanted to read this stuff. Maybe people will get it. There's question whether about mastery or technique and sprint training is important for participating in sports if you're not a track and field athlete. So if you're a track and field athlete, is it really important to do all these technique drills? Because there are not many positions or sports where athletes will be sprinting for more than 12 to 15 meters in a straight line. Jeez, okay. And think about this. You got some of these young kids in here, and this book probably does not tell me that the best training age for kids for sprint training is 12 to 14 years old. But drills performed imperfectly or before the athlete is physically or technically, so physically, it needs to be physically strong. If they don't have strength, the physical demands of sprinting are going to wear them out more, and they're probably not going to have great ground reaction forces because they're weak. So drills performed imperfectly or before an athlete is physically or technically ready for them may develop and reinforce bad technique, which will have a negative impact on the athlete's speed and could lead to injuries. Look at this. The greater ground forces provide greater lift into the aerial phase, more aerial time, therefore a greater distance before the next step. Okay, so if you're trying to go out there and overstride without putting greater force into the ground, you're going to be causing braking forces and not running like this kid was doing earlier today. So again, create greater ground force. How do you create greater force? You got to get stronger. Technique drills. They may still do this in high school, especially the A and B drills have limited value and may actually artificially constrain a sprinter's technique. Technique training should be on skipping and bounding, and drills help to improve force against the ground and the rate of force development. So force against the ground. So if they're pushing force against the ground and they're running in sand, force is dissipating. So for their equal actual opposite reaction, the more I try to push the ground, the more it's going to push against me. But if I'm in sand, it's going to give away, and I'm not going to have as much power produced in the body. So, I mean, that's pretty helpful. If one is not here's another section. If one is not working with track athlete, then it's probably not necessary for an athlete to train the components of speed. Sprinting has several general guidelines. First, sprinting must take place at close to maximum speed, because sprinting at sub-maximum speeds will alter running mechanics, stride frequency, and stride lengths. So sometimes when they're doing these speed drills, they're not running at maximum speed. They're just trying to get the form and things like that. Well, you just heard, if you're not running at maximum speeds, sub-maximum speeds will alter running mechanics. Training at high speeds will train athletes to run slowly, which is not desirable. Sprinting at high speed is extremely taxing and requires 24 to 48 hours between sessions. So if they're going to school every day, doing something, not good. And a lot of time at school, they have 50 minutes, maybe have an hour. Some schools around here have an hour and a half for weight training. Some of them are on block scheduling. And speed, length of each sprint, 20 to 80 meters. You need to be running at greater than 90% of your best. Optimal rest, 5 to 8 minutes, as low as 3. So what coach is going to let their kids sprint down, say we're doing 40-yard dashes, and if my rep range is, say, 40-yard dash, let's rest 3 minutes for 40-yard dash. Heck no, they're not going to let their athletes rest that long. So when we do our sprint testing in here, we generally have 12 to 15 kids or more. And so we're getting at least 5 minutes between sprint attempts. And you can tell if an athlete is in shape when we do our testing here. Usually their second 40 is their best one. So if you take their 40, if you run them a 4.91 on the first one, they may run a 4.87 on their second one, and on their third one, they may run a 4.89. So the first one's generally their slowest, the second one's generally the fastest, and the third one's in between number 1 and number 2. So 3 is in between 1 and 2 if you want to write it like that. Now, if they are out of shape, first one, second one still may be the fastest, and third one gets worse and significantly worse after that. Or sometimes if they're out of shape, it just goes best, worse, and it continues to get worse with that. The speed barrier is a nervous system pattern that develops as a result of long-term similar training methods and training loads. So if they're just going out there around track, if they're just going out there, okay, similar training methods. So if you're not squatting and you're not increasing, relative strength, the mass-specific force, ability to produce mass-specific ground reaction times, if you're just doing the same cone drills, if you're doing same whatever track workouts or whatever you're doing at wherever you're going, you will develop the speed barrier, like I mentioned even earlier, just now here. So just don't keep doing the same thing over and over again. And let's go on this. You've heard me talk about power cleans and things like that before. So hopefully I went over enough running and sprint training for people to understand. If not, I'll recap and do some more of this later. But, you heard me at the beginning of the podcast where I was talking about one of my competitors goes to school, teaches the athletes power clean. Well, they don't hardly ever squat there. Well, if they don't squat, how are they getting faster? They're not, because they're not being tested. And that's what pisses me off, because they're doing cone drills and they're doing speed drills and they're doing all the other stuff, but they think they're getting their strength at school. Well, you've heard these other kids, they go to school, they're not getting their strength there because the coaches don't know how to increase the strength at rapid rate. They find a program and give it to the kids, and all the kids are doing the same damn program for the same entire semester. They're not being individualized in order to handle their own adaptation rate. If you have person A, that program, that 12-week program may be perfectly written out for that one specific person. Well, what if my adaptation rate is better than person one and I need more stimulus? I can adapt quicker. So why wait 12 weeks when I can get that strength in 4? And you got the next person that may be too much volume. That may be too much intensity. So he's not going to get as good. Person 2 is not going to get as good because they're eating it up with their adaptation rate. And then first person may be written out. So you only got 1/3 or 33% improvement rate. But if they don't know about box squat, if they don't know how to increase the strength, they're not testing them. So they're just working out. They don't know. You know, I've had kids go to school here. I've got kids all around. They go all different schools around here. And I test them so I know what's going on at those schools just because they go there. And so these power cleans, and I get so tired of watching these things on, I saw something on Instagram or something the other day. These guys, yeah, we do power cleans here. So what you're really saying is, yes, we are dumbasses here. I hate this power clean crap. You know, and like I told someone the other day, the kids are taught to squat, so they're doing cleans. They're not even doing power cleans. They're cleaning. And so I'll have them clean here. And why am I qualified? Well, when I was in high school, I did cleans. I was a 300-pound plus power cleaner at 190 pounds. I was trained by a coach of 2 Olympians and 2 national championship teams. I know what power cleaning is. So I would have them and I'd film them, and I even went to USA weightlifting when I was in college, got my certification for that. The thing with power cleans is it takes a long time to be technically efficient at them in order to get the desired result from them. Not all bad, but there's a better way to do something. You know, I have my athletes here 1 month at a time. I'm trying to get results month per month. So I'm going to need to do what's going to work the best in the shortest period of time. Now, I will have some athletes do power cleans if they're going to college so they don't look like complete morons when they do it. But the thing about Olympic lifting and the Olympic lifts is they're doing cleans. So I'll watch their technique and they're squatting under the bar before their hips and their knees become fully extended. So they're not working on their rate of force development because their hips and their knees are not extended. They're just boom, they're falling under the bar, falling under the bar, falling under the bar. Now, if they were working on power cleans, it's cleans when you squat under the bar, a power cleans when you catch the bar without the squat under. You have to have more extension, you have to have more power to do a power clean than you do a clean. But the thing about the cleans is that if they're teaching them right, you can only explode one time. You jump off the ground, you can't jump again in the air. So the Olympic lifters, sports have to be fast and they have to have fast starts. And in Olympic lifting, the start is slow.